Welcome to the Dealreporter podcast. Hello, I'm Juliana Needham. Joining me today is Alessandra Castelli, Dealreporter's Europe editor, to talk about the acquisition of Vivendi's Brazilian unit by Telefonica. And also Alex Tarrant to talk about a merger that was abruptly called off recently, that of Balfour Beatty and Carillion. So Alessandra, starting with you, can you begin by explaining about this deal? Because it's quite complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very complicated. Telefonica announced to have submitted a bid to Vivendi to combine Telefonica Brazil and Global Village Telecom in a deal that could be worth 6.7 billion euros. The combination is going to create the largest telecom operator in Latin America. But Telefonica also said that it would be willing to offer to Vivendi its stake in Telecom Italia. And Vivendi reacted to the announcement saying they will evaluate the offer and has until the 3rd of September to do so.
And this, I'm guessing, will come under the scrutiny of the Brazilian regulator CADE. How do you think they're going to view the situation?
Well, we have to remember that when Telefonica increased the stake in Telecom Italia, CADE started looking at the situation very closely and asked Telefonica to reduce the presence in Brazil. And Telefonica has in fact reduced the stake then in Telecom Italia, but not completely. But it has increased the presence in Brazil. So if Vivendi is not going to be interested in buying the stake from Telefonica in Telecom Italia, the Spanish company might end up with a bigger market share in Brazil and still a stake in Telecom Italia. So I think, CADE definitely is going to have a say on the whole situation.
And is there any chance of seeing Telecom Italia making its own bid?
There have been quite a lot of rumors about Telecom Italia counterbidding for GVT. Definitely for Telecom Italia, this would be a defensive move to guard their presence in the Brazilian market, where Telecom Italia is present with Team Brazil. And definitely the Association of Minority Shareholders we spoke to also said they would support a potential counterbid by Telecom Italia.
And how would they finance the deal?
Well, the president of the Minority Association, Minority Shareholder Association of Telecom Italia, said estimated that Telecom Italia would need a capital increase of about 3 billion euros to finance the transaction. And we also spoke to bankers, industry sources, and they thought that a capital increase would make sense if linked to an M&A transaction.
OK, thank you. Now over to you, Alex. Balfour and Carillion. Balfour called off the merger talks. What went wrong?
Well, things seem to be going OK for a week at least. The deal was leaked, the companies confirmed it and said they were going to continue talks. And then suddenly one morning, Balfour says, no, it's off. Carillion apparently changed their tune on Balfour's sale of its consultancy business in the US, Parsons Brinckerhoff. Balfour said when we started the talks, we'd agreed that we'd go ahead with the Parsons sale, and apparently Carillion one evening said, actually no, can we look at keeping it please? And talks just ended the next morning.
And can you give us a bit of background on how the merger came about?
Well, the UK construction sector has been in a bit of a rut, and among those companies, Balfour Beatty in particular was facing a few problems. It had had a few profit warnings, its CEO had left, it was starting to look like a real sort of recovery play. It's one that recovery or value investors were starting to look at. Carillion got in touch in May about the same time as Balfour was going through all these problems, and the same time as it had started looking at the Parsons sale, said, hey, why don't we start looking at a merger? Balfour said, okay, we'll have talks. They talked for about 8 weeks, and these weren't just informal talks. They'd spent a lot of time and money looking at this process and confirmed it once the deal was leaked.
And what do shareholders think? Were they unhappy that the merger was off? Were they really supportive of it?
Well, they were a bit surprised. A few shareholders we spoke to thought, "Oh, hold on, why can't they just work through their differences? Why does Balfour have to suddenly throw its toys out of the cot and say everything's over?" But they were also wary of the merger. So a few have said how tough it is to value construction companies, and do we really want to be taking Carillion paper if it's a hard company to value? It's going to take a while to figure out whether 2 + 2 actually equals 5. So they were supportive of the companies looking at it. You know, it allowed them to cut costs, allow for synergies there, but they weren't gaga about it.
And how do you think this is going to play out?
Well, Carillion still has its put up, shut up deadline by the 21st of August. So we'll see if it comes out. Everyone is expecting it to talk to its shareholders who also have a stake in Balfour to say, look, guys, can you perhaps approach management of Balfour and get them to try and re-engage? But then it comes down to a credibility issue for Balfour. Balfour shareholders still don't know really what's on the table from Carillion. And B, would Balfour itself, its board, return to talks with Carillion if Carillion suddenly had changed its mind on Parsons?
Okay, well, it's something to keep an eye on. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alessandra. And thank you for listening.